The sun was beating down hard on the empty highway as two sisters drove through the heart of nowhere. Maya kept her hand steady on the wheel of her black pickup truck, while her younger sister Zara sat in the passenger seat scrolling through her phone trying to find a decent radio station. They had been driving for 6 hours straight, and the endless stretch of road was starting to get to both of them. "I need coffee," Zara said, stretching her arms above her head. "And maybe something that doesn't taste like the gas station sandwich we had 3 hours ago." Maya laughed and pointed ahead. "Look, there's a station coming up. We can fill up the tank and grab whatever they have." The gas station appeared like a mirage in the desert heat. It was one of those old-school places that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 1980s. A faded sign creaked in the wind, and the paint on the building was peeling in several places. But it had gas pumps and a small store, which was all they needed right now. As Maya pulled up to the pump, she noticed how quiet everything was. No other cars, no people walking around, just the sound of wind blowing across the empty lot. The only sign of life was an older man sitting behind the counter inside the store, visible through the large windows. "This place gives me the creeps," Zara said, looking around as she got out of the truck. "It's just quiet," Maya replied, but she had to admit the place felt a bit strange. She'd learned to trust her instincts during her time in the military, and something about this stop felt different. Not dangerous exactly, just off. Maya started pumping gas while Zara walked toward the store. The older man behind the counter, Earl, looked up from his newspaper and gave a friendly wave. He seemed nice enough, probably in his 60s, with gray hair and kind eyes behind thick glasses. "Hot day for traveling," Earl called out as Zara entered the store. "Tell me about it," Zara replied, heading straight for the drink cooler. "We've been on the road since early morning." Maya finished filling the tank and walked into the store. The air conditioning felt amazing after standing in the heat, and she took a moment to cool down before looking around for snacks. The place was small, but clean, with shelves stocked with the usual road trip essentials. "Where you ladies headed?" Earl asked, making conversation as he rang up their drinks and snacks. "Visiting our grandmother up north," Maya said, "is turning 85 next week, and we promised we'd be there for her party." "That's real nice," Earl smiled. "Family is everything. You'd remind me of my own granddaughters, always looking out for each other." Maya and Zara exchanged a look. They did have that kind of relationship. Despite being 4 years apart, they had always been close. Maya, the older sister, had always been the protector, the one who looked out for everyone. After high school, she joined the Army and served 3 tours overseas before coming home to work with community organizations, helping other veterans adjust to civilian life. Zara took a different path. She fell in love with martial arts in college and never looked back. Now she ran her own studio, teaching self-defense classes to anyone who wanted to learn, especially focusing on young people and women who needed to feel safer in their daily lives. "My sister here could probably teach your granddaughters a thing or two about taking care of themselves," Maya said, nodding toward Zara. "Oh, really?" Earl looked interested. "I teach martial arts," Zara explained. "Self-defense mostly. It's amazing how much confidence people gain when they know they can handle themselves in tough situations." "That's wonderful," Earl said. "More young people should learn skills like that. World can be a tough place sometimes." As if on cue, the sound of motorcycle engines filled the air outside. The rumbling grew louder and louder until it was clear that several bikes were pulling into the station. Maya glanced out the window and saw 5 motorcycles parking near the gas pumps. The riders were exactly what you'd expect from a motorcycle gang. Leather jackets, bandanas, and attitudes that screamed trouble. But Maya had learned not to judge people too quickly. Some of the best people she knew in the military looked tough on the outside but were good people underneath. "Probably just need gas like we did," she said to Zara, though she noticed Earl suddenly looked nervous. "Those boys have been through here before," Earl said quietly, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "They're not exactly what you'd call friendly." Maya felt that familiar feeling in her stomach, the one that had kept her alive during her military service. It wasn't fear exactly, but heightened awareness. She had learned to pay attention when situations felt like they might go sideways. The bikers entered the store, and immediately the atmosphere changed. They were loud, crude, and seemed to take up way more space than 5 people should. The leader, a big man with tattoos covering his arms and a beard that hadn't been trimmed in months, looked around the store like he owned the place. "Earl, my man," the leader called out. "How's business?" "Fine, Tank," Earl replied, his voice even quieter now. "Just fine." Maya noticed how Earl's whole body language had changed. His shoulders were tense, and he kept glancing toward the phone. Behind the counter, like he was thinking about calling someone. Tank noticed Maya and Zara immediately. His eyes lingered on them in a way that made both sisters uncomfortable, but they had dealt with men like this before. Maya's military training had prepared her for all kinds of difficult people, and Zara's work teaching self-defense meant she had encountered her share of creeps and bullies. Well, Tank said, his voice getting louder. "Look what we have here." The other bikers moved closer, forming a loose circle around Maya and Zara. It wasn't exactly threatening yet, but it was definitely intimidating. Maya could see what they were doing. This was classic bully behavior, using numbers and size to make other people feel small and scared. "Just passing through," Maya said calmly, keeping her voice steady and neutral. "Oh, we can see that," Tank replied, his tone mocking. "Question. Is where exactly are you passing through to?" Zara stepped slightly closer to her sister. It wasn't a scared movement, but rather the kind of positioning she taught in her self-defense classes. Always stay close to your allies. Always keep your options open. Always be ready to move if you need to. "Like my sister said, we're just passing through," Zara said, her voice equally calm. Maya was already assessing the situation the way she had been trained to do in the military. 5 of them. 2 of us. But numbers weren't everything. She had been in worse situations overseas and come out fine. The key was staying calm, staying smart, and not letting emotions take over. Earl watched from behind the counter, clearly wanting to help, but not sure what to do. Maya caught his eye and gave him a small nod, trying to communicate that everything was going to be okay. She hoped she was right, the tension in the small store was getting thicker by the minute, and Maya knew that whatever was going to happen next, it was going to happen soon. She just hoped these bikers were smart enough to walk away before things got complicated. Because if there was one thing Maya and Zara had learned in their different careers, it was that sometimes the people who look like easy targets are anything but. The silence in the store stretched on for what felt like forever. Tank and his crew weren't moving, and Maya could feel the situation getting worse by the second. She had been in enough tense situations to know when things were about to go bad. And right now, all the warning signs were flashing red. "You know what I think?" Tank said, his voice getting nastier. "I think you two are in the wrong place at the wrong time." One of the other bikers, a skinny guy with greasy hair, laughed like Tank had just told the funniest joke in the world. "Yeah, this ain't exactly your kind of neighborhood, if you know what I mean." Maya felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her expression neutral. She had dealt with people like this before, people who thought they could intimidate others just because of how they looked or where they came from. During her time in the military, she had learned that the best way to handle bullies was to stay calm and not give them the reaction they were looking for. "We're just trying to buy some snacks and get back on the road," Maya said, keeping her voice steady. "Oh, is that what you're doing?" Tank stepped closer, and Maya could smell the alcohol on his breath, which was barely 4 in the afternoon, but he had clearly been drinking. That made the situation even more unpredictable. Zara moved slightly, positioning herself so she could see all 5 bikers without having to turn her head. It was something she did automatically now, a habit from years of teaching people how to stay safe. Always know where everyone is. Always keep your escape routes open. Always be ready to move. "Look, we don't want any trouble," Zara said, trying to defuse the situation. "Trouble?" Tank laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You said anything about trouble? We're just being friendly, right, boys?" The other bikers nodded and made sounds of agreement, but their body language told a different story. They were spreading out, forming a loose circle around the sisters. Maya recognized the tactic immediately. It was designed to make people feel trapped and scared. Earl cleared his throat from behind the counter. "Tank, maybe you and your friends should just get what you need and move on. These ladies aren't bothering anyone." Tank turned toward Earl, and his expression darkened. "Did I ask you for your opinion, old man?" Earl looked down at his hands, clearly regretting speaking up. Maya felt bad for him. He was trying to help, but he was obviously scared of these guys. She couldn't blame him. Tank was probably 6 feet tall and weighed at least 250 pounds. The other bikers weren't much smaller. Leave him alone, Maya said to her, voice getting a little harder. He's just doing his job. Oh, now you're giving me orders? Tank turned back to Maya, his face getting red. You got a lot of nerve, lady. The skinny biker moved closer to Zara. Maybe we should teach them some manners, he said, his voice full of fake sweetness. Maya's military training kicked in automatically. She started calculating distances, exits, and potential weapons. The store was small, which could work for or against them. Less room to maneuver, but the bikers couldn't all attack at once without getting in each other's way. Zara was doing the same thing. But from her martial arts perspective, she was looking at balance points, vulnerable spots, and how to use the environment to her advantage. The narrow aisles between the shelves could actually work in their favor if things got physical. You know what your problem is? Tank continued. Getting more aggressive? You don't show proper respect. You come into our territory acting like you own the place. Your territory? Maya couldn't help herself. This is a public gas station on a public highway. Tank's face got even redder. Everything around here is our territory, princess. And we don't like visitors who don't know their place. One of the other bikers, a guy with a shaved head and tattoos on his neck, started laughing. Maybe we should show them what happens too. People who don't show respect. Maya could see Earl reaching slowly for something behind the counter. She hoped it was a phone or some kind of alarm, but she couldn't count on help arriving in time. They were on their own, at least for now, Zara said, trying one more time to calm things down. We're just trying to visit our grandmother. We don't want any problems with anyone, your grandmother. Tank made a mocking sound. How sweet. Where does Grandma live? Maya didn't like the way he asked that question. There was something in his tone that suggested he wasn't just making conversation. She decided not to answer. None of your business, she said simply. That was apparently the wrong thing to say. Tank's expression went from nasty to dangerous in about 2 seconds. Everything that happens around here is my business, he said, taking another step toward Maya, and right now, you're starting to really annoy me. The skinny biker moved even closer to Zara. You know what I think? I think these two need to learn some manners. Maya could feel the situation reaching a breaking point. In the military, she had learned to recognize the moment when talking stops and action starts. That moment was coming fast. Stay away from my sister, Maya said, her voice dropping to a tone that had made enemy soldiers think twice about their choices. Tank laughed. But Maya could see that her tone had actually gotten his attention. For just a second, he looked uncertain. Like maybe he was dealing with someone who wasn't as helpless as he thought. But then, one of his friends whispered something in his ear. And Tank's confidence came back stronger than before. Your sister? Tank looked back and forth between Maya and Zara. Well, isn't that nice? Sisters should stick together. Maybe can teach you both a lesson at the same time. The biker with the shaved head reached into his jacket and pulled out a chain. A big one, but heavy enough to do damage. Maya felt her heart rate increase, but not with fear. With preparation. Put that away, Earl, called out from behind the counter, his voice shaking. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, old man, Tank said without taking his eyes off Maya. They won't get here in time to help your new friends. Zara looked at Maya, and in that look, they had an entire conversation without saying a word. They had been sisters for over 20 years. They knew each other's strengths, they trusted each other completely, and they were both tired of being threatened by bullies. Maya gave a tiny nod, so small that only Zara would notice it. It was a signal they had used since they were kids, a way of saying, I'm ready if you are. The skinny biker made his first mistake then. He reached out toward Zara, probably planning to grab her arm or push her around. He was expecting her to be scared, to back down, to act like a victim. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The next few seconds would change everything. Tank and his crew thought they had found easy targets, 2 women alone at a gas station, in the middle of nowhere. They had no idea that Maya had survived 3 tours in combat zones, or that Zara had spent years learning how to turn someone's size and aggression against them. They were about to get an education they would never forget. The moment the skinny biker reached for Zara's arm, everything changed. What happened next was so fast that Earl would later tell people he wasn't sure his eyes had caught all of it. Zara moved like water. The skinny biker's hand was reaching toward her, expecting to grab hold of someone who would freeze up with fear. Instead, his hand found nothing but air as Zara stepped to the side with a movement so smooth it looked like dancing. What the skinny biker started to say, but he never finished the sentence. Zara's hand came up and caught his wrist, not hard, but with perfect timing and placement. She used his own forward momentum against him, guiding him past her and into the shelf behind where she had been standing. Bottles of motor oil crashed to the floor as he stumbled forward, completely off balance. Tank and the other bikers stood there for a second, trying to process what they had just seen. This wasn't supposed to happen. Women were supposed to be scared, supposed to back down, supposed to be easy targets. Lucky move, Tank growled. But Maya could hear uncertainty in his voice now. The biker with the shaved head swung his chain toward Maya, expecting her to duck or run. Instead, Maya stepped forward, inside the arc of the chain. It was a move she had learned in hand-to-hand combat training. It's getting close to an attacker so their weapon couldn't be used effectively. Her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist, stopping the chain mid-swing. For a moment, they stood there locked together, him trying to pull away, her holding on with a grip that felt like steel. "You have two choices," Maya said, her voice calm and clear. "Drop the chain, or I'll make you drop it." The biker tried to pull free, but Maya's grip didn't budge. Years of military training had taught her exactly how much pressure to apply and where. He could struggle all he wanted, but he wasn't going anywhere until she decided to let him go. "Let go of me," yelled, panic starting to creep into his voice. "Drop the chain first," Maya replied. Tank was getting angry now. This wasn't going according to plan at all. It expected easy victims. And instead he was watching his guys get handled by two women who clearly knew what they were doing. "Enough of this," Tank shouted and lunged toward Maya. That was his first mistake. Tank was big and strong, but he was also drunk and angry, which made him sloppy. Maya had dealt with bigger, stronger, and more dangerous people than him. The key wasn't to match his strength, it was to use his own size against him, as Tank charged. Forward, Maya simply stepped to the side and stuck her foot out. It was a basic move, something any soldier learns in basic training, but it worked perfectly. Tank's momentum carried him forward, and Maya's foot sent him crashing into the counter where Earl was standing. The impact shook the whole store. Candy bars fell off the counter, and Earl's coffee mug shattered on the floor. Tank groaned. Tried to get back to his feet, but he was clearly dazed. Meanwhile, Zara was dealing with another biker who had decided to join the fight. This one was smarter than the skinny guy. He didn't rush in blindly. Instead, he tried to grab Zara from behind while she was focused on his friend. But Zara had been teaching self-defense for years. And the first thing she taught every student was awareness. She knew exactly where everyone in the room was at all times. She felt the movement behind her and reacted without even thinking. She dropped low and spun around, sweeping her leg out in a wide arc. The biker who had been trying to sneak up on her suddenly found himself on the floor, wondering how he had gotten there so fast. "Stay down," Zara said firmly. It wasn't a threat, just a piece of advice. The fifth biker, who had been hanging back and watching, suddenly decided he didn't want any part of this fight. He started backing toward the door, his hands raised in surrender. "This is crazy," he muttered. "I'm out of here." Tank was getting back to his feet, his face red with anger and embarrassment. He couldn't believe what was happening. 5 grown men, and they were getting handled by 2 women who weren't even breathing hard. "This isn't over," Tank snarled, blood trickling from where he had hit his lip on the counter. "Yes, it is," Maya said, her voice calm but firm. "You can walk out of here right now, and we'll all pretend this never happened. Or you can keep making bad choices, and things will get worse for you." Earl was watching from behind the counter, his mouth hanging open. He'd been working at this gas station for 15 years, and he had never seen anything like this. These 2 women had just handled 5 bikers like it was no big deal. The biker with the chain was still standing there, held in place by Maya's grip on his wrist. He was starting to realize that he was completely outmatched. "I'll drop it," he said quietly. "Just let me go." Maya released his wrist, and the chain fell to the floor with a metallic clatter. The biker stepped back, rubbing his wrist and looking at Maya with new respect and a lot of fear. Tank looked around at his crew. The skinny biker was still picking himself up from the floor, covered in motor oil. The biker with the shaved head was nursing his wrist. Another one was getting to his feet slowly, and the fifth was already halfway to the door. This was not how this was supposed to go. Tank was used to people being afraid of him, used to getting his way through intimidation and threats. These women weren't intimidated at all. In fact, they looked like they were just getting warmed up. "You don't know who you're messing with?" Tank said, trying to regain some authority. Maya stepped forward, and Tank instinctively took a step back. That small movement told everyone in the room exactly who was in control now. "Actually," Maya said, "I think we know exactly who we're dealing with. The question is, do you know who you're dealing with?" There was something in Maya's voice, something hard and cold, that made Tank remember he was dealing with someone who had seen real combat, someone who had faced down actual trained soldiers. Not just gas station customers. Zara moved to stand next to her sister, and together they looked like exactly what they were. Two highly trained women who were completely comfortable with conflict and absolutely ready to handle whatever came next. "Here's what's going to happen," Maya continued. "You and your friends are going to walk out of here. You're going to get on your bikes and ride away. You're going to find somewhere else to hassle people, because this didn't work out the way you planned." Tank looked around the store one more time. His crew was beaten, embarrassed, and clearly ready to leave. The two women were standing there calm and ready, like they could do this all day if necessary. Earl was behind the counter with his hand on the phone. He was probably ready to call the police if things got any worse. Tank had a choice to make, and for the first time since this whole thing started, he was thinking clearly enough to make the smart one. "This isn't over," he said again, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. "Yes," Maya said firmly, "it really is." Tank stood there for a long moment, his face red with anger and embarrassment. Maya could see him thinking, trying to decide if he wanted to escalate this situation even further. She hoped he would make the smart choice, but her experience had taught her that angry, drunk men didn't always think clearly. "Come on, Tank," the skinny biker said from where he was still picking motor oil off his clothes. "Let's just go, man. This is getting out of hand." But Tank wasn't ready to give up. Yet, his pride was hurt, and Maya could see that he was the type of person who couldn't stand being shown up, especially by women. She had met men like this in the military, guys who would rather get hurt than admit they were wrong. "You think you're real tough, don't you?" Tank said, his voice getting louder again. "Well, let me tell you something. This is our territory, and nobody makes us look like fools." "You're doing that all by yourselves," Zara said quietly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. That was the wrong thing to say. Tank's face went from red to purple, and Maya could see him losing what little self-control he had left. "That's it." Tank yelled and started moving toward Zara, but Maya was ready for him. She had been watching his body language, reading the signs that he was about to do something stupid. As Tank lunged forward, Maya stepped between him and her sister. What happened next was something Maya had learned in advanced combat training. It wasn't about being stronger than your opponent. It was about being smarter and better prepared. As Tank reached for her, Maya grabbed his arm and used his own momentum to spin him around and push him, face first against the wall. It all happened so fast that Tank didn't even realize what was happening until he found himself pressed against the store wall with his arm twisted behind his back in a position that was very uncomfortable but not quite painful. "Let me explain something to you," Maya said, her voice calm and controlled. "I spent 3 years in combat zones dealing with people who were actually dangerous. You're not dangerous. You're just loud and drunk and making bad decisions." Tank tried to struggle, but Maya had him positioned perfectly. Every time he moved, the pressure on his arm increased, encouraging him to stay still. "Here's what's going to happen," Maya continued. "I'm going to let you go. You're going to walk out of here with your friends. You're going to think very, carefully about whether you want to keep making bad choices today." Meanwhile, Zara was keeping an eye on the other bikers. The one who had tried to sneak up on her was still sitting on the floor, looking like he was rethinking his life choices. The biker with the shaved head was standing near the door, clearly wanting to leave but not sure if he should abandon his leader. Earl was watching everything from behind the counter, and Maya could see that he was impressed but also worried. This situation could still go very wrong if Tank decided to escalate further. "You can't do this to me," Tank said, his voice muffled against the wall. "Am I not doing anything to you?" Maya replied. "I'm just keeping you from doing something to yourself that you'll regret later." The skinny biker finally spoke up. "Tank, come on, man. Let's just get out of here. This is crazy." Maya could feel some of the tension going out of Tank's body. He was starting to realize that this fight wasn't going to end the way he wanted it to, and continuing would only make things worse for him. "I'm going to let you go now," Maya said. "Are you going to make smart choices, or do we need to continue this conversation?" "Fine," Tank muttered. "Just let me go." Maya released him and stepped back, but she stayed ready to move if he tried anything else. Tank turned around slowly, rubbing his arm and looking at Maya with a mixture of anger and something that might have been respect. "This isn't over," he said again, but his heart really wasn't in it this time. "Yes, it is," Maya said firmly. "Because you're going to walk out of here, and you're not going to bother anyone else today." Tank looked around the store one more time. His crew was beaten, embarrassed, and clearly ready to leave. The motor oil was still dripping off the skinny biker. The guy who had been on the floor was finally getting to his feet, moving slowly and carefully. But then something unexpected happened. As Tank started walking toward the door, Earl spoke up from behind the counter. "Wait a minute," Earl said, his voice stronger than it had been all day. Everyone stopped and looked at him. Earl was holding up his phone, and he had a smile on his face that Maya hadn't seen before. "I've been recording this whole thing," Earl said. "Got everything on video, starting from when you boys came in here, acting like you owned the place." Tank's face went white. "You what?" "Recorded everything," Earl repeated. "The threats, the chain, everything. You know what's interesting about having a phone that records video? You can send that video to other people real quick." Earl held up his phone so everyone could see the screen. Maya could see that he had already sent the video to someone. "Sent it to my nephew," Earl explained. "He's a deputy sheriff in the next county over. So also sent it to the state police. They should be very interested in seeing how you boys behave when you think nobody's watching." The skinny biker looked like he was about to throw up. "Tank, we need to go right now." But Tank was staring at Earl like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You recorded us?" Every word, Earl said proudly. "Amazing what these phones can do these days. And you know what else? My nephew says they've been looking for you boys for a while now. Something about some other incidents at gas stations and truck stops." Maya saw Tank's expression change completely. The anger was gone, replaced by something much closer to panic. Apparently this wasn't the first time Tank and his crew had caused problems. Now there was video evidence of their behavior. "We need to leave," the biker with the shaved head said urgently. "Need to leave right now." Tank looked around the store one more time, and Maya could see him calculating his options. None of them were good. He could try to take Earl's phone, but that would mean going through Maya and Zara again. And that hadn't worked out well for him the first time. He could try to threaten Earl, but that would just make things worse when the police showed up. "Is harassment," Tank said weakly. "No," Earl replied, his confidence growing by the minute. "This is what happens when bullies pick on the wrong people." Maya had to admit she was impressed with Earl. The old man had found his courage, and now he was the one calling the shots. "You boys better get going," Earl continued, "because my nephew said he was sending some cars this way, and they should be here pretty soon." Tank finally realized that he was out of options. The fight was over, and he had lost in every way possible. His crew was beaten, there was video evidence of their behavior, and the police were on their way. "Let's go," he said quietly to his crew. The bikers started moving toward the door, but Maya wasn't quite ready to let them leave yet. As the bikers started shuffling toward the door, Maya held up her hand. "Hold on a second," she said, her voice calm but commanding. Tank stopped and turned around, fear now clearly visible in his eyes. "What now?" "Before you go," Maya said, "I Think you owe someone an apology? Tank looked confused. What are you talking about? Maya nodded toward Earl, who was still standing behind the counter holding his phone. He came in here and threatened a man who was just trying to do his job. You made him afraid in his own workplace. That's not right. The other bikers were shifting nervously by the door. They clearly wanted to leave before the police arrived, but Tank was their leader, and they weren't going to abandon him. I'm not apologizing to nobody, Tank said, but his voice lacked the anger it had before. Then you're not leaving, Zara said simply, moving to position herself between Tank and the door. Earl looked surprised. You don't need to do that for me, he said to the sisters. Yes, we do, Maya replied. Because this is about more than just us. This is about people thinking they can bully others just because they think nobody will stop them. Tank looked around the store, realizing that his situation had gone from bad to worse. The police were on their way. Everything was on video, and now these two women weren't going to let him leave until he did the right thing. Come on, Tank, the skinny biker pleaded. Just say you're sorry so we can get out of here. For a moment, Tank's pride battled with his common sense. See the internal struggle playing out on his face. He was a man who probably hadn't apologized for anything in years. But he was also starting to understand that this situation could get much worse for him if he didn't cooperate. Fine, Tank said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Sorry for what? Maya pressed. Tank's face reddened again, but this time it was embarrassment rather than anger. I'm sorry for threatening you, he said to Earl, and for acting like an idiot. Earl nodded slowly. I accept your apology, he said, but you need to understand something. This is my store, and these are my customers. Everyone who comes in here deserves to be treated with respect. I understand, Tank said, though he clearly hated every word, just then. The sound of sirens could be heard in the distance, getting closer by the second. The bikers all looked toward the door with panic in their eyes. Better go, Earl said. But if I ever see you boys in here acting like this again, that video won't be the only evidence I have. Tank nodded quickly and started toward the door, his crew following close behind. But as they reached the exit, Maya called out one more. Time, Tank, she said. He turned around reluctantly. Next time you think about picking on someone, Maya said, remember that you never know who you're dealing with. Some people might surprise you. Tank stared at her for a moment, then nodded and walked out the door. The other bikers followed, all of them moving much faster than they had when they arrived. Through the store windows, Maya and Zara could see the bikers hurrying to their motorcycles. They were clearly trying to get away before the police arrived, but they were having trouble. The bikes wouldn't start. That's weird, Earl said, watching through the window. Those bikes were running fine when they got here. Zara smiled and pulled a small handful of spark plug wires from her pocket. I may have taken a little walk outside while they were busy threatening people, she said. Figured it might be good to have some insurance. Maya burst out laughing. When did you learn? To disable motorcycles? You pick things up when you date a mechanic for 2 years? Zara replied with a grin. Outside, Tank was frantically trying to figure out why his bike wouldn't start. The sirens were getting closer, and his crew was getting more panicked by the second. Should we help them? Earl asked, though he was smiling as he said it. I think they'll figure it out eventually, Maya said, or they can explain to the police why they're stuck here. 3 police cars pulled into the gas station parking lot just as Tank finally got his bike running. The other bikers were still struggling with their motorcycles, pushing buttons and kicking at engines that refused to cooperate. The first police officer out of the car was a woman in her 40s with sergeant stripes on her uniform. She took one look at the scene and immediately understood what was happening. Having some trouble, boys? Sergeant Rodriguez asked Tank, who was now sitting on his running motorcycle but not moving. No trouble, officer, Tank said, trying to sound casual. It's just stopped for gas. Sergeant Rodriguez looked toward the store, where Maya, Zara, and Earl were standing in the doorway. Earl, you the one who called this in? Actually, my nephew did, Earl replied. But yes, we had a situation here. And you are? Sergeant Rodriguez asked, looking at Maya and Zara. Just customers, Maya said. We stopped for gas and snacks. Sergeant Rodriguez studied Maya for a moment, then her expression changed. Wait a minute, Are you Maya Johnson? 3rd Infantry Division? Maya looked surprised.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you... I was 1st Armor Division, Sergeant Rodriguez said with a smile. Served in the same area you did during your 2nd tour. I remember hearing about you. You saved a lot of lives over there. Just did my job, Maya said modestly. Well, from what Earl's nephew told me, you did your job here today too, Sergeant, Rodriguez said. She turned back to Tank, who was listening to this conversation with growing alarm. So, Sergeant Rodriguez continued, Earl's nephew sent me a very interesting video. Want to tell me what happened here? Tank looked around desperately, but his options had run out completely. The other bikers had finally got their motorcycles running, but now they were surrounded by police cars. It was just a misunderstanding, Tank said weakly. A misunderstanding that involved threats and weapons? Sergeant Rodriguez asked. That's an interesting way to describe it. Earl stepped forward. Officer, I want to press charges for the threats and the intimidation. These men made me fear for my safety and the safety of my customers. Sergeant Rodriguez nodded. We'll need statements from everyone, and I'll need to see that video. Over the next hour, Maya and Zara gave their statements to the police. Video that Earl had recorded was clear evidence of the bikers' behavior. And several charges were filed, including assault, intimidation, and disturbing the peace. Tank and his crew were arrested and taken away in the police cars. Their motorcycles were impounded as evidence. As the police were finishing up, Sergeant Rodriguez approached Maya and Zara. You two handled that situation perfectly, she said. Could have gone very wrong, but you kept it under control. We had good training, Maya replied. And Earl stepped up when it mattered, Zara added. That video made all the difference. Earl was cleaning up the motor oil that had spilled during the confrontation, but he was smiling. I haven't felt this good about myself in years, he said. Standing up to bullies is pretty satisfying. As the police finished their work and left, Maya and Zara finally got back to their original plan. They paid for their snacks and gas, but Earl refused to take their money. After what you did for me today, Earl said, your money's no good here. We were just defending ourselves, Maya protested. No, Earl said firmly. You were defending all of us. Tank and his friends have been terrorizing people around here for months. Today was the first time anyone stood up to them. As Maya and Zara got back in their truck to continue their journey, Earl came out of the store with a bag of snacks for the road. For your grandmother, he said. Hope she has a wonderful birthday party. As they drove away, Zara looked back at the gas station. In the side mirror, Earl was standing outside, waving goodbye, and he looked like a completely different person than the scared man they had met a few hours earlier. You know what the best part of this whole thing was? Zara asked. What's that? Maya replied. Didn't just stop some bullies. We helped Earl find his courage. That's something that will last long after we're gone. Maya smiled as they drove toward their grandmother's house, where they would arrive with a story that their family would be talking about for years to come.